This is the Crimson Corner with Bill Riley.
Walks it into the end zone for a Utah touchdown.
Your source for the best insight on everything happening in and around Utah athletics. Now, here's the host of the Crimson Corner, the voice of the Utes, Bill Riley.
Welcome into the latest edition of the Crimson Corner. I'm the play-by-play voice of the Utes, Bill Riley. Good to be with you today. Man, oh man, we've got a big week of football coming up here in Salt Lake City. Our show today being brought to you by Advanced Window Products. Ironically enough, we'll have a callback to Advanced Window Products as we go through the pod here today. It's great to be back, coming off a bye week, and Utah football's back at it this week. And you could make a case, I know we said this before, we said it was the biggest game so far this year in the Big 12 when Texas Tech came in about 3 weeks ago, and it was. And it still probably remains that way, but you could make an argument this week it's the biggest game of the season for the University of Utah. Well, we'll get into that as to why. They've got the Arizona State Sun Devils coming in Saturday night to Rice-Eccles Stadium. We'll get into that game. I'll give you my thoughts on the matchup, on ASU, Utah, where they're at, and all that stuff coming up. We're going to have a very special guest. It's Hall of Fame week at the University of Utah. Crimson Club Hall of Fame induction ceremonies are coming up on Friday night. I am lucky enough to get to MC those affairs. And one of the newest members of the 2025 Crimson Club Hall of Fame is going to join us on the program today. He is, of course, Nate Orchard, the Mayor Emeritus of Sac Lake City, will join us. We'll see how Nate is doing, catch up with him. He is a Salt Lake City and Utah business owner now, but he's also still very close to the Utah football program. So we'll talk some ball and life coming up with Nate Orchard. Talk a little bit about that Crimson Club Hall of Fame class and basketball, if you can believe it. We're inside of a month to go until the opener for both the men and the women. The Runnin' Utes and Utah women get going on November the 3rd, and they've got exhibition games coming up. And I've gotten a chance to spend quite a bit of time with the Runnin' Utes over the last week or so. So I'll give you my thoughts on Alex Jensen's team coming up on this week's edition of the Crimson Corner podcast. But we're going to start like we always do this time of the year with football. It is a huge game Saturday night at Rice-Eccles Stadium. Utah hosting number 21 Arizona State. Yes, it's a Pac-12 after dark start time. Of course, two former Pac-12 members hooking up on national TV. 8:15 Saturday night on ESPN, but of course also on our flagship radio home, ESPN 700. I'll have the call along with Scott Mitchell and Stevenson Sylvester. Both teams are coming in off a bye week. This game is very reminiscent of a game that Utah played against ASU a few years ago, where ASU was playing very well coming in and Utah wasn't playing quite as well, and all of a sudden things turned. Utah's 4-1, which is good, coming off that win a couple of weeks ago against West Virginia. They're 1-1 in conference play. ASU is also 4-1, but they're 2-0 in the Big 12. Their only loss was against Mississippi State on the road in Starkville, so they're in a little bit better spot. And if you've seen the standings right now in the Big 12 Conference, and we'll get to that coming up in a minute, you'll know why this is a huge game for Utah this week. As far as ASU goes, the last time these two teams met, ASU and Kenny Dillingham last year got the better of Utah, 27-19 down in Tempe. And it was kind of the end of an era in that game. That marked the end of the Cam Rising era. It was the last game Cam ever played for the University of Utah. Remember, he had the injured hand, and he tried to go, and he just really wasn't able to go. To be very fair, Utah's defense was spectacular most of that game. For 3 quarters, Utah's defense was outstanding. In fact, Utah led that game 16. People forget this now. Utah led that game 16-13 with 3 minutes to play in the third quarter. But the offense really didn't get a lot going that night, and the defense got a little worn down, and this cat named Scadaboo, he hit Utah with not one but 2 huge touchdown runs. Cam Scadaboo went for 50 to give them the lead, and then 47 to ice the game. Sam Levitt he's a terrific quarterback, and we'll talk about him in a minute. He had a pretty pedestrian game last year. He only threw for 154 yards. He had a touchdown. He had a pick in that game, but it was Scadaboo in those 2 really big plays. And Utah's inability to really get anything going offensively last year that led to the 27-19 loss. So Kenny Dillingham is now 1-1 against Utah. Utah put a pretty good number on him in Kenny Dillingham's first year up here in Salt Lake City. And so this will be kind of the rubber match. between Kyle Whittingham and Kenny Dillingham, who, by the way, have a really good relationship. Kyle talked about that a little bit earlier this week in his press conference. And Dillingham, actually, in his first year on the job, he was asked about building his program and what he wanted his program to look like and who he'd like to model it after. He said Kyle Whittingham in the University of Utah. And that's exactly what he's done. He's in his third year now on the job. They made the playoff a year ago. In year number 2 on the job, they were picked 16th a year ago in the Big 12, and they won the league. So he's done a really good job of creating a culture, but also finding homegrown guys from Arizona, and there's a lot of talent in the state of Arizona, much like there is in Utah, getting those guys to either stay home or come back home in the transfer portal, and he's built something really nice. And this year's team looks good again. I know they've got the one loss on the road early in the season, tough environment in Starkville, Mississippi, but otherwise they've been good, especially offensively. I don't know if they're quite as good defensively this year as they were a year ago. Still good team, but offensively they're really good. They've only had one game this year under 27 points. That was the loss at Mississippi State, 24-20. Other than that, they've been terrific this year scoring the football. Sam Leavitt, he's a dual-threat quarterback. I think he's the best. In fact, I think he's the best quarterback in the Big 12, and I think he's got the best wide receiver in the Big 12 as well. Leavitt's fantastic. He can beat you with his arm from the pocket if he needs to. Thrown for over 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns, 3 picks, but he can also run the football. He's run for 281 yards and 5 touchdowns this year as well, Sam Leavitt has. So he is fantastic. And like I said, I think he's the best all-around quarterback in the Big 12 Conference. Jordan Tyson, though, is his weapon. He's the best wide receiver in the Big 12. He's got 39 catches, 483 yards, and 7 touchdowns this year. My partner, Scott Mitchell, said this guy's a first-round wide receiver, and he has all the looks of it. He had a touchdown last year against Utah down in Tempe. And they've kind of got a dual threat at running back. Their leading rusher right now is a USC transfer by the name of Raleek Brown. He's gone for over 500 yards and a couple of touchdowns. He is a burner. He is really, really good. In fact, a couple of years ago when he was playing at USC, I was talking to their play-by-play guy, a guy named Pete Arbogast, who's a good friend of mine. And Arbogast, man, when he said this to me, I was like, what? Really? He said this guy gives off Reggie Bush vibes. Now, let's be very clear. Raleek Brown is not Reggie Bush, but he's got some of the same characteristics and traits, and when he gets into the open field, he can go. So they're good. They've also got a transfer from Army, who was one of the top rushers in the country a year ago, too. So they've got a two-headed monster at the running back spot, too. They are very good offensively. And we'll see. Again, defense, they've been opportunistic. They've been fine. They gave up 24 to Baylor. They gave up 24 as well to TCU. Those were 2 games that they won 27-24, and it really wasn't their defense. It was their offense making a play late in the game. But again, to drive home the point, this is a very good team. They're tied for the lead in the Big 12 Conference at 2-0. They have a very good chance to win it. I still think Texas Tech is probably, of the teams I've seen, and I've seen everybody play now, at least a game, if not multiple games. I think Tech's probably the best team, but I don't think Arizona State's very far behind them. So take that for what it's worth. As for the game itself, it's the most important game of the season. It just simply is for Utah. The Utes really can't afford another conference loss with 6 more games to play. Now, I know nothing, Utah's gotten down in conferences. They've done it. They did it in the Pac-12 as well. But this year, it's so balanced. And to already have the one conference loss to Texas Tech, if you were to lose this weekend's game, it would be an almost impossible climb because you would have lost 2 games already to 2 teams that are above you in the standings that would then have the tiebreaker head-to-head with you. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it would be a very, very difficult climb for Utah. Plus, if you're Utah, you've got to reestablish home field advantage. I don't know if you guys heard that. We had this stat at the end of the broadcast after the Texas Tech game. But Utah's now 0-5 in their last Big 5, Big 12 games at Rice-Eccles Stadium. Think about that for just a minute. We've talked about Rice-Eccles Stadium for so long being one of the great home field advantages, and it is. Let me say this. The Texas Tech loss was not on the crowd and the atmosphere. The atmosphere was fantastic at Rice-Eccles Stadium, but you've got to reestablish your home field advantage. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're in the SEC, the ACC, the Big 12, the MAC, the Mountain West, the Sun Belt. If you don't win games at home, you don't have any chance to win your league. You just don't. It's always protect the home field and steal a couple of games on the road somewhere. Well, Utah won a game on the road at West Virginia, but they've got to get back to winning ways at Rice-Eccles Stadium. So that's why this game is so important. Again, there's still 6 games to play after this week, but if you want to get to Dallas and play for the conference championship, you just simply have to win. You're at home against a ranked team. You've got to show who you are if you're Utah. So that's why this week's game is a big one for Kyle Whittingham's side, and I'm not saying anything that Kyle doesn't already know about this game. What needs to be better for Utah? After 5 games, they've been fine. This is a good team, but they've got to be able to run the ball against a good front. They struggled against Texas Tech. That was the storyline coming out of that game. They weren't able to get that push up front. When Utah's at its best, especially this year, they run it first. They struggled against Tech. Well, Arizona State is the second best run defense in the Big 12 Conference. They're only giving up 78 yards a game. They're good up front. Their front 4, front 6 are really, really good, kind of the same way Texas Tech was. I'm not sure if their personnel's quite as good as Tech's, but it's good. Second thing that needs to be better for Utah, you got to get chunk plays in the pass game. You just do. You can't rely on winning bully ball all the time, and if you're struggling to run the football, you better be able to pass it. Now, here's the good news for Utah. ASU comes in 13th out of 16 in the Big 12 in pass defense. They're giving up 242 yards a game through the air. So it will be interesting to see what Jason Beck decides to do early against ASU. Do you try to establish that ground game early, or do you soften them up a little bit by throwing the ball down the field? Also, weather could play a little bit of a role Saturday night as well. There's a good chance that it's going to be raining at some point in time during the game. Third thing where Utah needs to be better, they just need to tackle better. Obviously, they had the 23 missed tackles against Texas Tech. They were better against West Virginia a couple of weeks ago, but let's be very fair. West Virginia doesn't have the same type personnel Texas Tech does, and they don't have the same type personnel that Arizona State does. Because ASU is a lot more like Tech with Tyson and Levitt and Brown. These are all guys that can make you miss in the open field. And if you miss a tackle on Jordan Tyson or Raleek Brown, it might be 6 points going the other way. So you got to be able to run the ball against a good front. You got to be able to create some chunk plays in the pass game. And defensively, this is a game where you have to tackle well. So we'll see if Utah's able to do those things coming up on Saturday. Who's in my spotlight for Utah? I'll give you one player on the offensive side of the football. I'll give you one player on the defensive side of the football. This seems, I'm going to be Captain Obvious right here, but Devin Dampier is in the spotlight for Utah. He struggled against Tech. He did. Devin didn't have a good game. Wasn't just on Devin, but Devin didn't have a great game against Texas Tech. This could be a redemption-type game for him. He's also, by the way, playing against his old high school coach, who's a coach at Arizona State's staff. Now, Jason Moans was Devin's high school football coach. He joined Kenny Dillingham's staff a couple of years ago, and he's a high school coaching legend, won a bunch of state championships in the state of Arizona. So Devin's going to be, for me, in the spotlight. He doesn't have to throw for 300 yards or run for 200 yards, but he's got to run the offense, and he can't turn it over the same way he did against Texas Tech. And on the defensive side of the football, I'm not going to give you a particular player because I don't know who it is yet, but I'm going to give you the position. It's the strong safety position. That was the position that Rabbit Evans played. Well, we know Rabbit's done for the year. That's the position that Nate Ritchie played. We aren't sure of Nate's status for this week's game. It's probably unlikely, but we'll see. And so whoever it happens to be, maybe it's Jackson Benny because Jackson can play just about anywhere in the secondary. Maybe it's the freshman Nate Tillman, who had some good moments and some not so good moments against West Virginia. But Nate's a true freshman, and that was his first real game experience. So that's my spotlight for Utah. It's Devin Dampier on the offensive side, and whoever's playing that strong safety spot for Utah on the defensive side, because you've got to play in run support, but you're also going to have to be good tackling in the secondary in the pass game as well. So those are my spotlight players for the University of Utah. One guy who will be in the spotlight this weekend, both Friday night and Saturday, is going to join us coming up next. That's former University of Utah great and a Salt Lake City native and a friend of mine for a long, long time. We call him the Mayor Emeritus of Sac Lake City. He is also the owner of Advanced Window Products, which happened to be the sponsor of this very podcast, The Crimson Corner. So coming up, we're going to talk some football and life and Hall of Fame with the great Nate Orchard here on The Crimson Corner.
Here's another insider interview on the Crimson Corner podcast.
Well, next up on the Crimson Corner today, he's going into the Crimson Club Hall of Fame this weekend. He is one of the great players in Utah football history and a guy that I'm fortunate enough to call a friend a week ago. Eric Weddle was on with us, and Eric and I have been friends for 20 plus years. And our next guest and I covered him, and we just became friends over the years. And we actually have his company on as a sponsor of this podcast. That's Advanced Window Products. It's an honor to have on the week that he goes into the Crimson Club Hall of Fame, my friend Nate Orchard joining us here on the Crimson Corner. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing great, Bill. This is a treat. I mean, it definitely is a surreal moment to come now full circle with you, sitting down having this conversation. I think it's really exciting.
So I'm sure it will hit you at some point in time, probably later this week, maybe at the dinner on Friday night. But you're going into the Crimson Club Hall of Fame, and that means you're among the greatest athletes in the University of Utah history. When you go into that Hall of Fame, you and Star are going in, a couple of football players going in on Friday night. What if we would have gone back in time to, say, 2009 or 2010 and grabbed that kid named Nate Fakafua at Highland High School and said, hey, one of these days you're going to be in the Hall of Fame up at the University of Utah? What would he have said?
I would have been like, get out of here. There's no way. There's no way. It's just, I mean, to think back, and I get emotional thinking about it. It's just like my life, my story, where the things that I have gone through, the trials that I've faced, to be able to now sit here and say, hey, here is an accolade that, puts you among the best of the best at this university. Really through all of it is just God's hand in my life, allowing me and putting people in my life to help guide and direct me. But at the end of the day, you still got to do the work, right? And so with my mindset and the love and support, it just made for an amazing journey. And then to go on 7 years in the NFL, just add on top of it, right? And that journey itself was a difficult road, but one that was memorable and one I look back on. But the U being here at the U was just the foundation of it all.
You're a self-starter, and you don't get to where you are as an athlete or in business without being a self-starter. But who was somebody, and I'm sure you'll thank these people in your speech on Friday night, but who was maybe the most influential person early in your life, Nate? Maybe it was at Highland, maybe it was early in your football career at the U, that really got you pointed in the right direction and really helped. I'm sure there was a fire within you already, but who was that person that helped kind of stoke that fire a little bit and really get you on the right path?
That's a great question, Bill. There's, like I said, there's so many people who've been influential on me in little ways, right? Whether it's high school, whether it was the bus driver going to Glendale Middle School, the janitors at Highland. There's so many people had their hand in making me who I am. But with all that, it's just taking the best out of all of it and learning and growing from people and saying, you know what, this is who is, motivating me, who I'm doing it for, whether it's the fans, whether it's the custodians, whether it's the bus driver. Those people are the ones that fuel the flame inside of me wanting to do good. I had a daughter at 14 years old. She's now 17. And she was one that was at the center of all of it, right? It's like, oh, man, I just wanted her to be proud of me. That was it. And so when I had my chance at the U, it's like, okay, I'm going to leave my mark here. I'll make sure I do good. Not for her, but obviously, the family and everyone else. And I was able to do that. And I think this now is just kind of the icing on the cake, being able to go into the Hall of Fame.
You experienced it early on, but it's amazing when you become a parent, how important it is, how everything turns to your kids and making them proud and living for your kids and doing your best for your kids, right?
That's right. That's right. I mean, everything I do is for my kids. Nothing. I mean, I do it because I love it and I'm passionate for it, but at the same time, I want I want to make them proud. I want to leave something for them where they can say, hey, that's, my dad did this or he accomplished that, which I think more than half of them don't even know till this day. They don't even, it's just like, oh, Dad, why is that guy in your picture? Like, oh, whatever, Dad, let's go. We need McDonald's. Like, it's just like, I'm just dad, right? And then football is what I did. It's not who I am. And it's something I enjoyed very much so. And it allowed me it was a vehicle, right? It gave me, it paved the way and an avenue for me to have a better life for myself, for my kids, and just give people something to cheer about and enjoy. And I'm just grateful for every second that I spend up there at the U.
All right, let's go back in time when you made that choice to go to the U. What was it? Because you were a highly recruited athlete. You were a guy that had other options of places to go. To be fair, for those of you that don't know, he was a pretty good wide receiver back in the day, but he played some defense too. But what was it about Utah that said, yeah, this is where I want to go play some football and go to college?
Yeah, just again, family being here, but you had Coach Witt, you had Norm Chow, you had Jay Hill, you had Kalani, you had Coach Scally, you had a great staff that was very involved in my high school career and following my journey, and that constantly peppered me to just not take trips elsewhere, maybe, and just to stay here. And that the one official visit is all I needed, which is what I did. But it was the coaches, the players, the culture, well before NIL, right? Where you went because of your people and you embraced that culture and the history behind it. It was guys like Star Lotulelei, Tavita Finau, Tavita Stevens, Seni Fanuku, Harvey Langi, guys in my class too there. But I mean, those are the guys I look forward to going to war with and having a darn good time doing it, which we did, and we led the country in sacks my senior year in 2014. And that right there is just a staple for Utah defense. That's what we do, right? And so coming in as a freshman and understanding this is our culture, this is who we are, and to be able to leave that my senior year, I was like, okay, I did my part, pass the baton on to the young guys. Now you got Lander Barton out there catching touchdowns and playing defense, you lucky duck, and, just get to watch them do their thing.
You can't sack the quarterback if you're a wide receiver. If you do, you won't play very long. Your coach will have you off the field. So how did that conversation go? Who initiated that to move you from offense to defense?
Oh, it's a great story because, when I got to the U, I was 190 pounds as a receiver coming out of Highland High. I had 1,200 yards receiving, 17 touchdowns. Like receiver was just in me. But at the same time, I just love being on defense because you could just let loose, light your hair on fire. Here's our assignment. Let's go, right? I don't have to read coverages and do all that. But I go in as a receiver, and they had a few injuries at the defensive end position, a few injuries piled up. And, Coach Witt pulled me in his office one day. I'm like, oh, man, here we go. If freshman, I'm messing up already. What's Coach going to say to me? And he sat down and said, hey, Nate, I see a bright future for you on the defensive side. He related to Paul Kruger, Cole Misi, a lot of these guys and the success they've had. It's like, you put on 40 to 50 pounds, I promise you'll be playing on Sundays, and maybe you'll be driving a Porsche like me or something. He had all the cars back then. But anyways, he just said you'll have a successful career in the NFL if you make this transition to defensive end. And I said, okay, let's do it. So it was a no-brainer, just understanding that, hey, I didn't have to worry about the complexity of a playbook. Defense is just clean, it's guys just rallying together and having fun and making big plays. And that's what we did. And I enjoyed the move over to defensive end. And then from there, the weight gaining journey began, where I went from 190 my freshman year all the way to 245 my senior year. And I think I still hold it well together. Still make it look good, Bill. Come on.
Doing all right, Nate. You're doing all right. You also helped create one of the great monikers in Utah football, Sack Lake City. You mentioned leading the nation in sacks. You set a school record with 18 and a half sacks your senior year. It had to feel, we always hear players get in the zone, the game slows down. What was that year like? Because it felt like you had a direct path to the quarterback every single snap, every single game.
Yeah, I tell you what, I get that question asked a lot. I got it asked a lot by scouts, coaches, what happened? You went from 3 or 4 sacks, whatever, the year before to 18 and a half. What was the big jump? And it was the same success that I had in high school, right? Freshman, sophomore, junior year did good. But then my senior year, I blew up. I had I think it was 17 sacks my senior year, 17 touchdowns, and broke all kind of school records. And then, fast forward 3, 4 years later, senior year, and so I look back to see what was it that allowed me to have so much success. And really it came down to just visualization, right? To be able to see it, to believe it, and to paint this picture in my mind, and work towards something. The power of the mind is so amazing that it allowed me to, again, I was working with the coach each game, going into each game each week. I had a sports psychologist. She helped me with my visualization, whether it was at home, in the lobby, or sending me audios of just each game, who I was playing. We're at UCLA. You see the grass, you smell the grass, you see the fans, you see number 17 across from you. This is what you're doing, right? And so I'm painting this picture. I'm playing the movie in my head before I even get on the field. And so, no different from my film study, I'm playing my opponent, 50, 70 times on tape before I even get onto the field. And from there, I just let it fly. And then it becomes where I'm in the zone. And again, things just start happening. But again, something that I think, the visualization and working on myself allowed me to really just settle in on my craft and go out there and just have a good time.
You mentioned him a minute ago, but I want to come back around for a minute. Star Lotulelei. You're going into the Crimson Club Hall of Fame this week with Star, and he is certainly a larger than life figure in Utah football. What does it mean for you, not just to go in the Hall of Fame, Nate, but to go in with somebody who had such a big impact on your life playing with him?
Yeah, I mean, Star's my guy. From day one, the moment I stepped foot on that campus in the original building, was able to be with him for 2 years, and a big brother, silent, moved in his own way. But when he spoke up, everyone listened, the room went quiet. And I'm just thankful, again, through God's hand, putting him in my life. His influence may go unnoticed and unseen, but like the way he affects people, the dude is special, right? And he's just like a big teddy bear. People call him Big Teddy Bear, and he's quiet. He keeps to himself, but again, when he speaks, people listen. And I feel very fortunate and grateful to go into this hall with him. There are a lot of having, when my wife and I had our first kid together. He was the first call that I made, and just I was going to name my first daughter Starlight, but that didn't turn out. We had to cross that off the list, but it's all right. And so every now and then my oldest is like, "You were gonna name me Starlight?" I'm like, "Hey, it was my boy." But all good things. I just feel very fortunate and honored to be inducted with him. It's a treat for sure.
Wasn't just Utah football, and Nate played 7 seasons in the National Football League. Began his career with the Browns, drafted in the second round there. We always hear, well, yeah, he played at the highest level of college football. Football in the NFL is a different beast, isn't it, Nate?
It is. And that's where, again, reality setting in. You go from, having nutritionists there and coaches there and tutors and all those things, and you get to the NFL, and it's all about time management. Where you put your time really matters, whether it's in your body for recovery, the food that you eat, and coordinating that, and just the training, right, and the preparation. So everything, once I left college, the NFL was just a different beast. But to play 7 years, feel very fortunate. I was on like 10 or 11 different teams, 15 plus tryouts, and a whole lot of disappointment in between. But again, I just, persist, and everything else will take care of itself. That's just been my journey and just life in general. And again, fun times.
7 years in the NFL. A lot of people don't get one. A lot of guys that had great college careers never get that 1 year. What was your biggest takeaway from your experience those 7 years? What did it teach you? Was there a life lesson? What did it hammer home? Because there's the old adage, the NFL stands for not for long, but right. You lasted 7 seasons.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I guess a life lesson really that I got out of all of it was don't let them change you, right? Don't let them write your story. A lot of hardships, with Cleveland, let alone, was there for 3 years. We went, I think 3-13, 1-15, and then 0-16. And then you learn a lot. You learn a lot there. And then as I'm retired and removed now, speaking to some of the former staff, you hear more about what happened behind the scenes. And we all know just the kind of things that happen behind the scenes. It was just very unfortunate. But they try to paint a picture about you or your organization or whatever it may be. I've just learned to just not let them write your story, and just be true to who you are. I very much so didn't want them to change my character. And there are a lot of times where I put up a wall, was very resentful, and I realized that more and more. But understanding that, hey, just trying to be Christ-like, man, just trying to just to see everybody, the good in everybody. And for me, it was just like cookies was my happy place. My wife made those famous cookies at the U, so we took it on to the NFL, and that was a part of the journey. And I swear, every team that I was on at some time, at one point, they've all had that cookie. I got a picture of Jim Brown eating the cookies in the team meeting at the hotel the night before. But the cookies, I think, were a way for me to really connect with my teammates, to bring them a little bit of joy, even if we're going 0-16. It gave them something to look forward to, and it was a way for people to have conversation and to see them wiggling their toes because the cookies were so doggone good that they wanted more. They paid me $20 on the side for some cookies bills. I'm like, all right, man, maybe I got to put the NFL to the side and start a cookie business. But yeah, those are some of the life lessons, right? Just staying true to who you are. Don't let them change you. And then just finding the good in people. And I did that, and the cookies really brought people together, whether it was in the player engagement person's office and we're sitting there eating some cookies, and the conversations that were being had, just all good things.
Our interview with Nate here on Crimson Corner is brought to you by his company, ironically enough, Advanced. How did you get into the window business? And for people that they're listening to this in Salt Lake City in Utah, they see you on TV, they see you all over the place. How'd you get into this?
Yeah, so the windows, again, we didn't have NIL back there. Back then, I was getting $1,100 a month, extra 100 because I got married, so $1,200, and I had a wife and kid and rent and all that stuff. And so, yeah, I just needed to make extra money in the summer and installed windows here at Advanced Windows, actually, because my dad had started the company. So I installed windows in the summer, and then circle back years later, the time was coming in to just kind of sell the business. And anyways, wanted to keep it in the family, so got into it with him and my partner, and just wanted to be able to continue growing the legacy that's the business has been around for 40 years, and offering custom vinyl window replacement windows for your home, making it more energy efficient, and transforming people's life. I think it's a way for me to continue kind of my purpose, right? It's just to serve people, make people, find the good in them. And to me, transforming people's homes and leaving them with an experience and a product they can be happy about, just fills my cup and knows that we're doing good out there.
If you need windows, they've worked with me and they do a great job. So give Nate and his crew a call if you're looking for replacement windows or something for a new house as well. I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about this year's team. 4-1, still a lot to play for. Everything's in front of them. What have you made of the Utes through 5 games?
Boy, John Henry Daly is trying to do something. I tell you what.
I was going to get to that.
I'm telling you. Every week I turn the TV on. I know who I'm looking for. But overall, I'm happy to see just the progress that was made. I think last week was a good bounce back, or 2 weeks ago for them. Devin Dampier, I think, has not disappointed us thus far. I think there was a lot of hype coming in with him. Obviously, Coach Beck. But, overall, I'm happy about the things and the way the team is looking. This would be another good week, another good test. And then from there, it's just building upon it, right? Just building each week after week, continuing the momentum, correcting mistakes defensively, offensively, making tackles, capitalizing on the opportunities that when they're there. You learn that in the Texas Tech game, and just making the most of the opportunities that you have and converting. This is a good team. I'm excited to see how the season progresses. And yeah, I just want to see the boys do good, man, and just keep making this run.
As the mayor emeritus of Sac Lake City, the man who coined the term and has been the mayor for a long time, what do you like when you watch John Henry Daly play?
Yeah, he reminds me a lot of our boy Snacks, good old Hunter Demick, right? He's just got a motor. The kid doesn't stop. He's got good leverage. He finds his way around that corner. He loves the push-pull. And he just keeps bending that corner once he gets to the top of his rush, coming back down on that quarterback. But yeah, overall, he's got good energy, good hands, and he's very disruptive. So he's doing a lot of good things. It's just staying consistent, staying healthy, and, getting the guys going around you, whether it's the interior guys working those games just to free him up a little bit. And then obviously bringing the blitz like Coach Scalley likes to do.
And when you've got a guy like John Henry Daly or a Nate Orchard on one end, it makes it a lot easier for those guys on the opposite end too, because you can't double everybody, can you?
That's right. That's right. So, guys like Logan Fano and those other cats just need to come and eat as well and join the party. But yeah, then you see the secondary and what they're doing, right? You get disruptive, quarterback gets rattled, he starts throwing the ball places he's not supposed to, or it doesn't come off clean. And it just gives big play opportunities, and just keeping the streak alive with the, pick sixes or whatever, defensive touchdowns that we're on now for 20 years or something. I don't even know. So it's great. It's fun to watch.
Well, hey, it's going to be fun to watch you go into the Crimson Club Hall of Fame coming up this weekend. I could not be happier for you. Congrats on all the success, both in the football career, but also off the field. And I look forward to catching up with you again real soon. Thanks, Nate.
Awesome, Bill. You're the man. Take care.
That's Nate Orchard with us here on the Crimson Corner. We'll have more ahead. Stay with us.
The best insight on all things Utah athletics. It's the Crimson Corner Podcast.
Big thank you again to Nate Orchard for joining us on this week's edition of the Crimson Corner. He'll be going to the Crimson Club Hall of Fame Friday night, along with another football player who you heard him talk about, who's one of his kind of mentors, that Star Lotulelei. He'll also be going in, along with Georgia DeBritz, one of the great gymnasts, Red Rocks, in University of Utah history. Bert Lund, who's one of the great skiers in a school history that's got a lot of great skiers. Ashley Mason, perhaps the greatest goalkeeper in Utah women's soccer history, and Kem Gardner going in as well. So all of those folks will be honored on Friday night and honored at halftime of the football game coming up on Saturday. So at halftime, stay in your seats to see everybody honored. They'll be out on the field at the very beginning of halftime, and then continue to stay in your seats, because at halftime they're going to do a drone show, about a 10-minute drone show that will be kind of over the south end of Rice-Eccles Stadium, kind of above the Jumbotron and everything else that's the video board that's in the south end. So you'll be able to watch that drone show, and hopefully Mother Nature agrees with us on Saturday night, but it should be a lot of fun. So there'll be a lot going on at halftime coming up on Saturday night with the drone show. And by the way, don't forget, it's a red out as well for Saturday night's game. So get out that favorite red University of Utah gear and fit that you might have, and probably, just to be safe, maybe bring a poncho along with you, because you don't know. There's rain in the forecast, but it is a red out coming up on Saturday night as well at Rice-Eccles Stadium. So there's a lot going on, and the Crimson Club Hall of Fame is always a great honor, and it's a great time, and it's great to see some of these names going in that have had such a great impact on the field, on the court, on the mountain for University of Utah. And, of course, Kem Gardner, who's done so much for not just the athletic department, but also for the University of Utah and the community. So they'll all be in the Crimson Club Hall of Fame class of 2025, which will be honored this week at Rice-Eccles Stadium. Away from Rice-Eccles Stadium for just a minute, we're not too far away from the first exhibition of the basketball season. On the 17th, a week from this Friday, October 17th, the Runnin' Utes will have an exhibition game against the Nevada Wolfpack, Steve Alford's crew, up at the Huntsman Center, free to the public and open to everybody. It's a chance for you to see Alex Jensen's first team for the first time. And I've had such an opportunity over the last week or so to sit down and talk to every one of the members of the team and the staff as well. And let me just tell you this, there is such a good vibe and such a good feel around this basketball team right now. Now, everybody's wanting to know what they look like and how they'll gel, because they haven't played anybody. And even the players are saying that too. They're like, we're ready to play, because they've been together really since the beginning of summertime, doing workouts and scrimmages, inter-squad stuff all summer long, and now, for about the last several weeks this fall. So they're really anxious to get out and go head-to-head with the Wolfpack for the first time and just see what they have. By the way, if you can't make it to that exhibition game on the 17th, it will be also aired on ESPN+. Myself and Sean Mooney will have the basketball call that night as Utah takes on Nevada. But I just think the vibe in this group is good. Alex and his staff are doing an excellent job of instilling culture in what they want here in year number one. But it's always interesting, and that's kind of where we are with today's day and age of collegiate athletics, but especially in basketball. Everybody, even the big programs that have been successful, lose a lot of players. The player movement in basketball with the transfer portal is real. And Utah's got 12 or 13 new faces this year, and we're going to see how those guys mesh together for the first time against the Nevada Wolfpack. They'll then play an exhibition a week later up at Oregon against the Ducks. I don't have any broadcast information. I don't know if that's even going to be aired anywhere. And then, of course, the first real game is on the 3rd of November as they will play at the John M. Huntsman Center. Same thing for the women. They'll have an exhibition game coming up against, I believe it's Western Colorado, on October 27th, and then they'll open up at 11 a.m. on November the 3rd as they welcome in an opponent. I think it's Sioux Falls will come in for that first game. And, it's not quite as many new faces for Gavin Peterson's side, but there's a fair number of new faces on that team, too, including a new old face, Lonnie White, who began her career at Utah, then transferred to Virginia Tech, then's come back to Utah now. So it will be fun to see them as well make their kind of debut on the 27th in an exhibition game and then come back around for their home opener. A lot of excitement around basketball at the University of Utah right now. But Friday, October the 17th, Runnin' Utes exhibition game against Nevada. Free to the public, so come out and see Alex Jensen and his guys for the first time take on Steve Alford and the Nevada Wolfpack. And speaking of hoops, just a little PSA at the end here. Tickets are on sale right now for men's and women's hoops. You got men's non-basketball conference games, single game tickets, and conference games and Saturday ticket packages that are on sale. And for the women, it's single game tickets and a conference plan that are on sale right now. You go to utahtickets.com. That's utahtickets.com for all the information. So that's what we've got. That's this week's edition of the Crimson Corner. So glad you could join us here today. Looking forward, I'm telling you, Saturday night is as big a game as Utah will play the rest of this year because they need a W right now. They need a W to keep up with the Joneses in the Big 12 Conference. And we'll see what they're able to do on Saturday night at 8:15. We'll have the radio broadcast for you on our flagship radio home, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM, with myself, Scott Mitchell, and Stevenson Sylvester. Television side of things is ESPN with, I believe it's Brock Osweiler and Dave Fleming on the call there. So, for my special guest today, the great Nate Orchard, the mayor of Sac Lake City, and his company, our friends at Advanced Window Products, who sponsor this podcast. Thanks to you guys for listening. Thanks to Nick Bowlerjack for producing it. I'm Bill Riley saying we'll talk to you next time on the Crimson Corner. Go Utes.
You've been listening to the Crimson Corner podcast with Bill Riley. Bill is back next week with the latest on Utes. Download previous Crimson Corner episodes on all major podcast platforms.